Colts Nation, if helmets or helmet accessories interest you, make sure to go to greengridiron.com and use code INDSYN at checkout to get the discount code with it. Whether it's mini helmets, full-size helmets, visors, clips, whatever it may be, different face masks, different variations of helmets, alternate helmets, whatever the case, you can get it at Green Gridiron. And again, that's code INDSYN at checkout for the discount. Thanks for stopping by for another video, and now let's get into it. What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where today we're going to talk a little bit about free agency, right? We kind of talked a little bit earlier about possible trade destinations. Starting that video, I said we were talking about free agency. It was a little bit about free agency, but mostly about trades. This one is the free agency conversation where it's really about what we need, right? And talking about a high position of need, something we've been talking about for years, right? That transitioned from, hey, we need wide receivers to all of a sudden we're deep at wide receiver. Boom. Now we're deficient on the other side of that, right? You have the wide receivers. Now we need cornerbacks, right? And we have Jalen Jones, Samuel Womack on the team for another year. Juju Brent's coming back, but can he stay healthy? That's the big question. We could have depth, right? You add a solid veteran, all of a sudden you have depth. You go into this draft and you can get one of these guys that are really good cornerbacks. This draft, there are a couple positions that are really good. You're going to be able to find a good cornerback in this draft, one that has the qualities that Chris Ballard likes, right? The long arms, the big frame. That's a lot of cornerbacks nowadays coming, just like wide receivers, just like athletes in general, basically. A lot of these guys coming in, no matter what their position is, 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", big guys that are, 200, 210, 220, 225, and can move, right? 4.4s and 4.5s. This is everybody, every position. It's just going crazy right now. Even the big boys coming in running, 270 pounds, running 4.67s. Like some of these guys are freaks coming in, right? So you can get cornerbacks in the draft, and we can get deep at that cornerback position. And I think it's interesting. Of course, we already talked about free agent guys like Charvarius Ward, Asante Samuel Jr., some of these guys. And of course, Charvarius Ward, seemingly the front runner for every team. He's the best cornerback available. I think everybody that knows anything about the NFL and knows anything about NFL players would understand Charvarius Ward, the best one out there. So every team's going to want him. So, of course, Colts fans want him with what our need is, with what could make us great. And this Lou Anarumo defense and what we're going to need, Charvarius Ward is the guy. So when you look at it, the other options, because there's going to be so much competition for his services, if we're unable to get Charvarius Ward, well, there are a couple of Eagles players that have been released over the last 2 days. Yesterday and today, you have Darius Slay, right? Big play Slay. I've been a big fan of his. Even when he was in Detroit, when Detroit was having their up and downs with Matthew Stafford and then mostly their downs during his time. And then he gets out of there and ends up with the Eagles. And he's had obviously some pretty big success with the Eagles, went to a couple of Super Bowls. And so the success that he's been able to have as a veteran and still a really good, even at his age, really good player. I don't know if the Eagles win a Super Bowl without him, right? And then James Bradberry, he didn't play this year because of injury. And James Bradberry, there are different things you could say about him. He's had really good seasons, and then he's also had really bad seasons. So it's been up and down, and I think it really just matters with him what situation he's in. I think coming off a season where he didn't play the entire year due to injury, what I saw is that he's being lauded about how he showed up every day like a professional. He was a good leader in the locker room. He was a good leader for a team that had a lot of youth in the secondary of the Eagles. And as good as those guys were, apparently James Bradberry, like a big reason in why those guys were able to develop the way they were and why those guys were as ready on game days as they were because of the type of professional that he is. So on the field, you can say what you want. He's getting older. Will he be the same player when he comes back? Those things will have to be determined. But for what we need, that's where I think you find value in James Bradberry, which I think is an interesting decision. If you didn't draft a guy this year, you went and got a couple of guys in free agency. If you get Charvarius Ward and James Bradbury, a high-priced guy and an older guy coming off an injury that's going to be a little bit of a price. But where do we need to spend money? I've said it time and time again. We have to spend money on defense, specifically in the secondary. You make your secondary better. All of a sudden, guys like Latu, who led the team in pressures last year, start getting those sacks, start finishing those sacks. He's getting there in time because teams aren't able to get the ball out so fast. That's the objective, right? And obviously the defensive scheme that we play, it all works together. But spend money in the secondary. Go get Charvarius Ward. James Bradbury again, dude. As I sit here and I think about it, I hear the things that I was reading about James Bradbury, everything that I've ever thought about James Bradbury, and everything I've watched him plenty of in his career. I've done plenty of homework on him because I thought he was a good option for us a few years ago when he was a free agent. And so I think James Bradbury coming in, being able to be a leader in the locker room, and Darius Slay the same, man. Both of these guys can come in and be really good leaders in the locker room for a really young unit, for a team that needs to find that winning identity. You need to bring guys in. That's what we need to do, is bring guys in from winning situations, and we're going to have to overpay. That's why some of the guys on the team are going to get released. It's the nature of the business. We're going to have to overpay if we want to get these guys in the building. We need these guys in the building, guys from winning situations, to come in and let our young guys know, these young people know, and people that have been on this team their whole career, let everybody see and know, hey, what you're doing here, this is, if you do it this way, right, this is how I've seen it done, and it works and is successful. And if you can do this, and if you can be consistent in this, this is how we become great as a team. And that's where I think you get value from these veteran players. So that's how I feel about Darius Slay. Again, that one, he might be too high priced, because I'd like to get a guy like, I'd like to get Charvarius Ward. So Darius Slay, not so much on my radar. I think a guy that can be a little more low-key like James Bradbury is a guy that I actually like to bring in. All of a sudden, if you have Charvarius Ward, Jalen Jones, Kenny Moore, those are your starters. Behind them, you have Samuel Womack, you have James Bradbury, and you have Juju Brents. 6 cornerbacks that we feel really good about. If you bring back Ashton Dulin, or you go get somebody in free agency to be a depth piece at wide receiver, you go draft somebody, and all of a sudden you have 6 wide receivers, at least 5 wide receivers. That's what I know. If we get those guys in free agency, we can have 5 wide receivers and 6 cornerbacks. All of a sudden, our depth there is good. Got to figure out offensive line depth. Got to figure out defensive tackle depth. There are other things that need to be figured out, linebacker. But those are just, again, if you spend money on the secondary, it'll make everything better. That's just the way I see things. I think our defense can be much better this year. We just have to be willing to pay. Just got to be willing to pay. And guys have to be willing to come here. That's the other side of it. It takes 2 to tango. So we'll see what we can get to happen. Again, we'll have to overpay. And this is the way I see it. Of course, I want to know what you guys think. When I put these videos out, of course, I want to know what you guys think. If you enjoy the content, make sure you hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you get notified anytime we drop any more content on this channel. Going to keep pumping it out. I appreciate you guys so much for stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.